Michigan State owns the state of Michigan. Maybe they will own the division and the Big Ten. We got Ryan O'Blennis on the line from the Only Colors on SB Nation to help us break down the Spartans coming off that huge epic win over Michigan, 37-33, down by 16 in the third quarter, coming back to take out their rival. Ryan, how you doing today?
Good. Big win this weekend. It's a great game to watch.
Yeah, for anybody who just loves college football, just wanted an exciting game between two nationally ranked contending teams, that is all that you could ask for. That was an epic game. It was the best game of the day. Just a tremendous, hard-fought game, exciting game in every possible way. That said, Michigan rolled up 550 yards of total offense, had a what some people might have deemed a commanding lead at 30-14, roughly halfway through the third quarter. And then I got to say, Michigan State lived up to what Mel Tucker's been preaching the entire season, and that is that they are going to be the tougher team, the mentally more focused and tough team, and the team that's the best conditioned. And usually the team that's best conditioned wins the fourth quarter. And voila, they outscored Michigan 23-3 to take it.
One thing Tucker said in his press conference is, one thing about our guys is they're not going to quit. That's kind of the Michigan State mantra is keep chopping. Another big thing that Tucker preaches to his team is neutral thinking. So when they were down 30-14, they never felt like they were out of the game because they take it one play at a time. And I think that kind of mindset helped them with the comeback, because they never felt that it was over at that point. They know that, if they just continued to do what they were doing, make a few adjustments and execute, that they could win the game. And that's what ended up happening.
A 16-point lead in college football midway through the third quarter is definitely a solid advantage. There's no question about that. Teams that have that type of lead have a strong probability of winning. I got to think it's more than 80%. But there's still a lot of football left. And after that point, it seemed as though Michigan was the team that was playing more conservatively. Their coaching staff was coaching more conservatively, and Michigan State just let it all go. I think one of the certainly signature moments of a game that had many was that 4th and 4 play in which Peyton Thorne, who may not have had his best day, but on that particular play, my goodness, he dropped a dime on a play that you wouldn't think would be a low risk, high percentage play to call on 4th and 4, but they just went for it and he nailed it.
Yeah, it was like you said, it was a great throw by Thorne. It was a really great job by Jaden Reed, the receiver, too, to go up and get that ball on a play that they had to have it. It was, like if they didn't get that play, then at that point it very much may have been over. And I think that kind of speaks to Thorne's toughness and his poise. And like I was saying earlier with the neutral thinking, he threw 2 interceptions early in the game. I believe they were both in the first quarter. And like you said, he didn't have his best game overall, but he bounced back from that and he led his team to a victory, despite having things not go his way early. So again, they just kept chopping and, they did what they needed to do to eventually win the game. So, I think that even though Thorne probably didn't play his best, I think that was one of his better games in terms of commanding his team, of leading his team to a win. Even if his play was a little bit shaky. So that was kind of my takeaway from Thorne with that game, is that, you can count on this guy to get it done in crunch time, even when things weren't going his way before. And I think that's an important quality to have in your number one quarterback.
Even though I'm locked in on football statistics most of the day, I also know statistics have shown me that I've seen recently that half of America shops on Amazon, which is ridiculous when you think about the customer service or the customer, portion of the market there. So we know that you're going to shop on Amazon. Christmas is coming. Please use the link that we provide in the description section below. Grab that link. Same shopping experience. Doesn't cost you a penny, and you help us build the channel. All right, we got Ryan O'Blennis on the line. Check out his work and the rest of the crew at The Only Colors. It's the SB Nation platform for Michigan State athletics. The Spartans are 8-0, and they go to Purdue coming up this week. Ryan, when we look at Kenneth Walker, when you talk about Peyton Thorne not necessarily playing his best game, it seems like Kenneth Walker almost always plays his best game. And this, of course, was a huge one. And when I hear Heisman speculation, and I'm not a big Heisman guy, don't really get into the hype or the trying to select them. But of course, doing what I do, I get asked about it practically every day. I think this is the guy. Now, that could change in the next 4 weeks. There's still 4 games left to play. But if anybody would cast a Heisman vote for anybody else at this point, I just don't know what they're watching because he's been phenomenal.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, at this point in the season, it's hard to overlook. And, Michigan State's never had a Heisman winner. They've never had a Doak Walker Award winner either, which you would think that Kenneth Walker is a shoo-in for that at this moment. But, yeah, in terms of the Heisman, he's still going to have to finish out the season strong. There were a couple games against Indiana and Nebraska where he was battled up, but every other opponent he's just kind of decimated. And Michigan was the best defense statistically that they had faced all year, and he scored 5 touchdowns on them, which was the most that the Wolverines have ever given up in a single game in their history. He had 197 rushing yards. That was, if he is going to have one this year, that was what people would consider his Heisman moment or Heisman game. They're going to look back on that performance against, a really good defense and, point back to that as a reason why that not only should he be going to New York, but he should be a serious, being in serious consideration to actually win the award. And, it's very hard to do to win that. You be the best player in the country and have everybody vote for you to win that trophy. But, to your point, there's nobody else in the country right now who has done what he has done this year. And, I think if he can finish the year out strong, he should definitely be a finalist and probably win it.
Folks, join us on Patreon. You get the selections of 20 media members there on a 12-pack of games each week, but you also get my predictions on the top 25 plus 13-5 against the spread last week and 107-69 this season. So if you do the math, if you know anything about wagering and how much return you get, let's say on a $100 bet, which is typically about $91 on a win, add up 107-69, and it works out pretty well for you. So join us on Patreon, and we've got a whole lot of other things there in addition to the weekly predictions. All right. The defensive effort from a statistical standpoint wasn't great, but I don't think that tells the story. Again, 3 points given up in the final 20 minutes of play, of football play. That's pretty substantial. I think the Charles Brantley play, the interception on Cade McNamara that iced the game, I think that's just indicative of what you see out of this defense. He was playing up. He was able to bait McNamara. He plays off the ball then, and he runs and makes a great catch to seal the game. Just the Michigan State defense, your take on the performance and as we go forward.
Yeah, so Michigan State's kind of played that bend don't break style all season long, and people look at the massive amount of passing yards that they give up, and I saw a lot of chatter throughout the week that Michigan State's secondary isn't very good. They give up a ton of yards. Michigan can take advantage of that, which they did to their credit. Cade McNamara had not had a strong passing game, throughout the season, really. This was, I think, very easily his best of the year. But what Michigan State does is they keep you off the scoreboard. So if you want to move the ball, between the 20-yard lines, they might let you do that. Obviously it'd be better if they can get off the field quicker, force more fourth downs and punts. But, when it comes down to it in the red zone, more often than not, they're holding teams to field goals or no points. And, very rarely are they actually giving up touchdowns. So, that's kind of been the key for this defense is that, Tucker said in one of the press conferences I was at post-game too, he said, yards are one thing, but points are totally different. So, if you get some yards, that's great, but what really matters are points. So they're not too worried about giving up the yardage. They're worried about keeping you out of the end zone. And that Brantley play, like you mentioned, that was unbelievable. He's a true freshman. And, for him to have that kind of awareness to make that kind of play, he essentially, intercepted that one-handed to seal the game. That was a really cool moment for him. And, I think he's going to be a really promising player for the Spartans in the future.
Got Ryan O'Blennis on the line from The Only Colors talking Michigan State football. And we've got a Michigan show in which a lot of Michigan fans were noting that, Michigan State secondary had given up a ton of yards passing. And I went through game by game and I just tried to put it into context. When Jack Tuttle of Indiana is throwing the ball 52 times and they're only giving up 188 yards of passing, that's basically tackling everything right in front of you for 4 yards. It's almost meaningless. De'Ara King threw the ball 59 times. There's not a whole lot of quarterbacks out there throwing the ball 52 and 59 times in a game. So when you're playing in front, you're going to give up passing yards as well because the other team's got to throw the ball to catch up. So that number can certainly be misleading.
Yeah, exactly. And they also played, Western Kentucky, who throws the ball 100 times a game and has a crazy passing attack. But one thing that I wanted to mention too about the defense is, they stopped Michigan's dynamic rushing duo of Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins. They gave up a lot of the yards through the air, but Michigan was the number 5 team in the country coming in that game in rushing yards per game, and MSU they shut those two down. And they forced Cade McNamara to beat them with the pass. So, like I said, they threw for a lot of yards, but they didn't get in the end zone. And, that was a great game plan was, forcing them to try to beat you with the pass and neutralize those two running threats who have, what Michigan has ridden to victory is that rushing game all season long.
And now we've got Purdue, road game, and this is a classic letdown game. So what I mean by that is I don't necessarily buy into it all the time. Nobody's really shown me statistics on this. This is one of these sports theories that may or may not be true. And I certainly think it holds true sometimes, and sometimes it's overblown. The teams have trap games and they have letdown games. But this is the classic spot. You play your rival. You're both undefeated, ranked roughly top 5 in the country. It's just an enormous game, maybe the biggest game of the year in college football, certainly in the Big Ten to date. And then so you win that game, then you go on the road against a good opponent, but not a name opponent. Nobody's going to go crazy about Purdue. They're 5-3, but they've shown capable. And again, this would be the quote unquote classic letdown game.
Purdue is actually a team that has a really good defense. I think they're something like 10th in the country in points allowed, and they're really strong against the pass too. They allow something like 184 yards per game through the air, something really low, and then rushing defense are respectable too. I think top 50 or top 60. So, and then they also have a really good wide receiver, David Bell, who leads the Big Ten in passing yards, so they can make plays there. And so, it's definitely a team that Michigan State's not going to take lightly. Mel Tucker always has his guys focused 1 week at a time. But, yeah, I mean, just kind of the human emotion of what that Michigan game meant to the team and how high, it is to win after that game, how high it makes you feel and all of that stuff, just kind of that aspect to it would kind of lead to, next week, especially being on the road in West Lafayette, a possible letdown game. And Purdue went and did that to Iowa, who was number 2 in the country at the time. So they can definitely hang with a team like Michigan State. Their problem has been that they, haven't been able to finish drives and put points on the drive, but they have a good passing game and they have a really good defense. So, yes, it's definitely not going to be an easy one for the Spartans.
Yeah, they're only giving up 313 yards total offense per game and 17 points per game. But like you say, it's on the offensive side, all come off the arm of Aiden O'Connell. David Bell, one of the best in the business, catches 9 or 10 passes seemingly a game. But the rushing attack is something you would think Michigan State, after what they did against Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum, would be able to handle the Boilers and make them one-dimensional. Should be an interesting one in West Lafayette. One last note, Jalen Naylor, we don't necessarily know his status, but know he had to leave the game in the second half against Michigan. And you've got maybe a thread of evidence that he might be okay.
Yeah, I think Peyton Thorne said something about he was quote running around at practice today. I don't know if that meant he had pads on or how active he was, but it sounds like possibly a good sign. Or if he has to miss this game, hopefully it's not something that's a long-term injury. That looked like he had some sort of cast on the sideline in the second half of the Michigan game, and Mel Tucker doesn't like to give away a lot about injury statuses, so we'll have to wait and see, if Naylor comes out there on Saturday.
Michigan State, Purdue, and West Lafayette, a sneaky good one on Saturday. Ryan O'Blen is helping us break down the green and the white. Ryan, we appreciate you stopping by. Enjoy the game on Saturday.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back, Mark.